Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Joe Chaffee Weather Show on this Wednesday night, the 17th of April, 2019. Coming up on 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Hope everybody had a very nice day. We had an odd day here in my neck of the woods because of the fact that we've got this warm front that's forming to our south. So that put some areas in the south of New York City, for example, in clouds for a good part of the day, particularly down in central and south Jersey and into parts of, southeastern Pennsylvania, where temperatures struggled all day in the 50s to around 60, while it was bright and sunny with temperatures a little bit warmer as you went to the north of there. A little bit of focus issue here going on. Now we're going to see that reverse tomorrow. And of course, all of this is due to the fact that we've got this storm that is developing. Another one of these very vigorous weather systems. We've seen several of them in the last couple of weeks. This might be the last one of this particular series, the way things are looking. So we'll play through whatever we get out of this over the next 3 days, starting with tonight. And then weather next week maybe calms down a little bit in some areas. You still will probably have the prospect of pockets of severe weather going on, but as far as wrapped up intensifying cyclones are concerned, that might not be the case. It'll be a bit of a calmer look to the atmosphere. Timothy Veltman, no, not a new studio. It's the same studio. The light is hitting it in a different way today, and maybe I got the angle a bit different too. I don't know if you can see that what's behind me there, that is actually the green screen chroma key. It's white because the bright white lights of the studio are shining on that, so it looks as if it's white, but trust me, it's green. Okay, so that's the TV stuff going on for later today. In the meantime, let's get the weather stuff underway tonight. I want to start with the Storm Prediction Center's severe weather outlook for tonight into tomorrow morning, because it is getting a bit on the busy side. We've got 2 areas of enhanced risk being indicated, and we have 2, as of 8:01 Eastern Time, we have 2 working severe thunderstorm watches up for northwest Texas and into Oklahoma, into western Oklahoma, and now a new severe thunderstorm watch is extended in that enhanced area in southeastern Kansas. And you can see that the slight risk actually runs all the way up into the upper Mississippi Valley. And then you have the second area of enhanced risk in eastern parts of Texas toward the Arkansas state line and down into a small portion of southeastern Oklahoma. The severe weather in that enhanced area is likely to occur overnight into the morning hours. And there's a little bit of time before that develops. And again, this is for tonight into tomorrow. Now, we do have risks continuing to grow and expand over the next couple of days. We're going to take you to tomorrow's risk area. This is for Thursday. And we've been, of course, noting how the SPC, when they show it up at first glance in their long range in the 4 to 8 day time frame, to pay attention. Well, now you can see where we are as we get into the short range here. We have enhanced risk for much of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and that's inside a larger area of slight risk that takes you up into southern Illinois and southeastern Missouri, and then the marginal risk runs all the way up to about Chicago. We're going to then jump to Friday into Saturday morning, and this is where the impact is going to be in the eastern part of the U.S., running from central Florida, from just north of Lake Okeechobee, on northward through just most of Georgia, South and North Carolina, just about all of Virginia, southern Maryland, and southern Delaware. We have the marginal risk that is in play. The northern line touches Cape May in southern New Jersey and then runs across northern Delaware, northern Maryland, but just south of the Pennsylvania border. I still think there's a chance that we may wind up seeing that northern fringe of the marginal risk getting pushed up a bit more. The risk for general thunderstorms runs all the way up into central New England. I don't see the slight risk maybe getting pushed up much further north, but we might push that marginal risk up to the north. Maybe the SPC will do that tomorrow, or they may just wait till Friday to do it. So right now, as far as what's happening on the surface, you've got the atmosphere essentially prepping itself up for storminess in the east, with low pressure right now in southern Minnesota, the first of two low centers. And then you have this snaking frontal boundary that runs from the low across the Great Lakes north of Chicago, and then kind of straddles northern Ohio near the shores of Lake Erie, and then snakes around in western Pennsylvania, crossing into northern Virginia, where you have the stationary boundary. This is the issue now, as this thing starts to form and grow in strength, with the lows coming in from the west. This is going to eventually be one long warm front that's going to find its way northward during the day tomorrow and eventually move its way up into southern New England. Now, there's a southern part to all of this, and that is with high pressure that is off the Carolina coast. And of course, you've got this southeast flow setting up in the western Gulf of Mexico around that high. You notice some of the buoy obs out here, dew points in the low 70s with temperatures in the mid 70s. Well, those 70 dew points are now making their way inland into coastal Texas and pushing northward up into northeast Texas. Low pressure, a 998 low being analyzed at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Not too far from Amarillo, maybe a bit to the east of Amarillo. But this is very warm tropical air that's running all the way up toward Illinois and Iowa and Missouri. So that's the reason why you have that really large area of severe weather risk going all the way up, because we're pushing those 60-degree dew points up now into Missouri, and then you've got the 70-degree dew points that have pushed their way up into northeastern Texas and also into parts of southern Louisiana. The areas to the east, they're beginning to set up for their severe weather risk for Thursday and Thursday night, as the lower atmosphere is beginning to saturate there as well. We've got dew points running now in the mid to upper 60s across southern Mississippi and Alabama, and of course that's all going to push its way up into the northern part of the state in good time. So this severe weather setup is going to play through tonight, tomorrow night, and Friday night into early Saturday morning. Here's a close-up view, by the way, of the surface plot. You can get all of this if you go to spc.noaa.gov and just click on the mesoscale tab, and you can pull up these maps and kind of create whatever parameters you'd like. Here's what the current radar looks. The surface maps on here are great because they are actually plotted close to real time. So this map is from 8 o'clock tonight, the surface map, 8 o'clock tonight, and the radars are also pretty much in real time. And you can see where the showers and thunderstorms are in that first of those two watch boxes that have already gone up. With respect to storms in eastern Texas, in that second area of enhanced risk, you were beginning to see some cells developing to the west of that. There's two little patches there, but as we go through the next several hours, you're going to see that thunderstorm line become more and more impressive as it pushes on to the east. And if you, by the way, if you go to the homepage, you can pick any sector you want. We can show you the northeast, the rain that's up over the Great Lakes at the moment, some heavier downpours up in northern Michigan and northern Wisconsin. Here in the east, you look at the surface obs, we've got temperatures mostly now in the low 50s, and right along the immediate coast and in southern New England, temperatures have dropped into the 40s. If you look at the isobars right near the coast, they've all turned southerly, so we're getting some the wind coming in off the 40-degree ocean, and that is the marine, the beginnings of the marine layer that usually you start to see north of the warm frontal boundary. You go down into Virginia, the way that 21Z map was analyzed, it makes sense because we've got temperatures in the mid to upper 70s in the central and western part of the state. And as we saw here on the other analysis, the front is drawn here right through northeastern Virginia, coming in from off the ocean from the southern tip of Delmarva. You've got 50s, and then also, as I said, you've got 40s now in southern New England and Long Island, and there's that front snaking around. So all of this is going to eventually just become one big warm front and push on northward and set up the warm sectors that will be further to the east and up the east coast come Friday into Saturday. So let's take a look at we have the whole run of the late afternoon GFS. Those of you that were on the Patreon live stream 2 hours ago, we were in the middle of getting that run. And you've got this northern low up near the Great Lakes, but it's really the southern part of this trough that's going to wind up being the most important, because eventually all the energy is just going to kind of pile on into the Appalachians. And you can see it here by the time we get to Friday. Let me roll it back. So here's our severe weather firing up tonight into tomorrow morning in East Texas and western Louisiana. And then later in the day, it moves across Louisiana and into Mississippi. And then now we're into Friday, where that weather is moving through Georgia, South and North Carolina, and then off the North Carolina coast Friday night. The extent of how far north those stronger thunderstorms get is tough to say, because one of the big problems is once you get this whole frontal line close to the East Coast, the flow is southerly. I mean, you've got winds coming in from off the ocean running all the way up the coast, and eventually that has some impact in the stability of the atmosphere, or the instability of the atmosphere. You get marine influence starts to get involved, so perhaps you don't have as an unstable an atmosphere once you go north of, say, southern New Jersey northward. This is also different from what we saw last Sunday and Sunday night, because we did get those warm temperatures well up into the 70s and dew points up well into the 60s in some cases, pretty far to the north into southern areas of the Northeast, and even eventually wound up in upstate New York. I don't know that you're going to get those juicy dew points as far north this time around. And the upper energy with the upper low is further south this time around, which makes a difference as well. So if you watch the surface low as it gets into the Appalachians, you get a low. The northern part of that weakens as it moves into Ohio and Pennsylvania, and a new low center forms in the southern Appalachians Friday night, and then finds its way northward up into Pennsylvania and on up into southeastern Canada. And of course then you got that the frontal boundary winds up pushing offshore, and the orientation of this is different. I want to just make a correction. This was the 12Z run. The 18Z run really was not that different. It has the same idea. You get that severe weather that marches through East Texas, across the Gulf states, and then into the southeast. Low pressure develops in the southern Appalachians and runs right up the Appalachians into western Pennsylvania, and then you take precip moving out. So as far as specific play in my area, we're looking at southerly winds tomorrow, a lot of clouds. Southern New Jersey southward, where you will be in the warm sector, you will probably break out into some sunshine tomorrow with temperatures well up into the 70s in some places. On Friday, as the whole boundary shifts eastward, this is where you start to get into downpours and possibly some thunderstorms, especially as you go south. Later Friday afternoon, later Friday afternoon, and into Friday night. And make no mistake, some of this rain is going to be heavy, on the order of several inches that will occur. And because this thing is oriented north-south, it doesn't just fly through. It takes its sweet time moving eastward. You've got a strong southerly flow along the east coast, so it's going to be pretty hard to move all of this eastward. You got to get the whole trough to start shifting eastward to get everything out of the way, and that's just going to take about 48 hours for it to play through. And eventually it does. By Saturday, late morning, showers and storms are moving off the Carolinas. By early afternoon, they should be done in and around New York City. And then by Saturday evening, the trough line shifts more toward Boston, and you notice that the precip kind of hangs there. The other issue with regards to this weekend, of course, you've got Easter Sunday, and because the trough is lingering, there's probably going to be clouds and the risk for showers in parts of the Northeast during the day on Sunday. The upper features here, again, very vigorous. This trough, and I can show you back. This is the one from Sunday into Sunday night, Monday, where you had this trough that came out from the south and merged with a little bit of energy up in the north, lifted up as an identifiable strong shortwave, moved up into southeastern Canada, and goodbye. This one is diving, that northern stream and southern stream, phasing and then diving down and cutting off there. You see how that upper low is just develops and moves into the Ohio Valley, and you've got southerly flow along the East Coast. Remember, winds blow counterclockwise around lows. You've got a deep upper low sitting in southern Ohio, so your jet stream flow along the East Coast is from south to north. This is a situation, by the way, where if we were in the hurricane season, and if there were some kind of tropical system out here, you'd have to be concerned about it getting caught in that tropical flow, in that southerly flow with that jet stream, the way it's shaped up along the East Coast. This eventually pivots far enough to the east that it would probably push it out. It would turn it and move it northward, and then eventually slide it more northeastward as the trough swings eastward. Just kind of talking in theory here, but this is the kind of setup that you don't see it too often. But this look is, if we had a tropical system sitting off the southeast coast, this is what you would look for in the upper air in order to make it a threat for the northern parts of the mid-Atlantic states and on up into New England. And it's been quite a while since we've seen an upper air pattern match up like that to when there's been a tropical system off the East Coast. Okay, so now we got that out of the way, because that's something we'll have to worry about it in a few months, if at all. But this upper trough reaches its peak intensity Saturday morning and then weakens, but it's still there, a weak closed upper low over New York City by Sunday night. This is why I'm thinking that over the Northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states on Easter Sunday, you're going to have clouds and maybe some instability showers. And then going into the first couple of days of next week, it doesn't really look all that bad. Getting a bit of a ridge position here in the east. There are a couple of little embedded short waves here and there, but I don't see anything of major consequence going forward. In fact, when we look at the long range, we're getting now almost to the point in the long range, we're almost at the end of April and the beginning of May. But as we see what's happening this week, you watch that energy in the north. There's your upper low for the weekend. It reaches peak intensity come Saturday morning, then starts to weaken as it lifts up to the northeast, and done. And then the jet in Canada just kind of pulls up, so you're left with whatever flow that you have from across the Pacific. It's not a strong one coming into the west coast, and you do have a bit of a trough there in the middle of the country for the middle part of next week, but in the east at least, it really doesn't look too bad. We might have a couple of reasonable days back to back, which would be really nice. You still are going to have to deal with short waves and probably some weak systems moving along. Here's a stronger short wave as you get into the longer range, dropping down from western Canada and moving across the Great Lakes and into the east. And now we're into about May 1st and 2nd if this winds up verifying. There's also, on this particular run of the GFS, we have a little bit of a blocking high that develops between Iceland and Greenland toward the end of the period. But you know what? Who knows if that's even real. But the bottom line is, after seeing three, including the one that's coming up for this weekend, seeing three fairly wrapped up systems. We're going into a period where things are going to be a little bit calmer, a bit more quiet for next week, and maybe we can catch a few breaks with regards to having a day or two of sunshine. I want to bring up the satellite loop tonight so you can get a feel for what's happening. We'll show you the whole U.S. view. And on the upper right, you can see that stick of clouds. That's what I had to deal with as a forecast dilemma today, because I was literally sitting on the northern edge of those clouds all day. I was in the sunny part, but those high clouds were right on my doorstep, and they really didn't move very much until the last few hours. We're starting to see the high clouds pushing up a bit to the north, and also getting into some low clouds that are developing because of the onshore flow. And just want to see if I can freshen that up. Okay. And now, of course, if you look out to the west, you can see the Gulf moisture that's coming in into Texas and northward into the lower and middle Mississippi Valley. The northern stream feature, you distinctly see two separate pieces here, that northern stream shortwave and the southern stream shortwave. They haven't quite gotten together yet, but they will. But it's very, very evident here what we can see on the satellite loop. And with respect to the radar, which I forgot to show you, and do please remember, as always, it's 8:20 Eastern Time. So if you're watching this on a replay, satellites and particularly the radars are obviously dated. So please make sure you check your local National Weather Service forecast office by going to weather.gov, because if you're in an area at risk for severe weather, you want to make sure you're looking at current stuff. Now, in Texas and Oklahoma, as of 8:20, you can see some strong thunderstorms developing there in North Texas. You also could see that twisting there. So that's the upper low that's forming in the southern part of the shortwave. To the east-southeast of that, as you get a little bit closer to where Dallas is, north and west of Dallas, you're starting to see those cells fire up. That's going to be the severe weather for tonight in East Texas. We've got some heavier downpours and rains moving through the Great Lakes, some showers up in the northern plains. Quiet, though, out in the west for a change, other than a couple of scattered showers there in Southern California and Southern Nevada. And in the northeast, things are fairly quiet. The rainfall totals with regards to what WPC is doing, the Weather Prediction Center, they always do a pretty good unbiased job when it comes to figuring things out. And since we are only dealing with one weather system, all the rain here, this is pretty much what I would refer to as a clean view. Notice you basically have bands of 2 to 3 inches of rain. And this has to do with the orientation of the trough being north-south. There's going to be a bit of a banded nature to where the heaviest rains fall. So if you're on either side of those bands, you're going to wind up with about half as much rain as everybody else. So you've got this streak of 2-inch plus rains running up the East Coast. Then you've got this area that's got half of that, central and western Pennsylvania westward. And then you've got another band of 2 to 3 inch rains running through the Ohio Valley on up into southern Canada near Toronto, and just kind of skimming western New York and northern New England. It also is pretty active in terms of rainfall in parts of southern Arkansas, northeast Texas. There, if you look at the scale, that's where you start to see that little patch of 4 or 5 inches, and also down in parts of South Texas. Also, in terms of this, over the next 7 days in the Pacific Northwest, you're seeing some 3, 4, 5 inch rain amounts for coastal Washington state, as you have enough of a Pacific jet there bringing in weather systems and bringing in some more rain. But Southern California and the Southwest look fairly quiet, and not a whole lot of precip on up into the northern plains. Looks like most of the rainfall amounts up there on the order of about a quarter of an inch or less, and that again is over the next 7 days. We don't have a lot going on in terms of watches and warnings, and we'll bring this down. We've got the beginnings of some flood watches up in northern Maine. We have flood watches up for Mississippi, much of eastern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, northeast Texas. And you can see in the pink area as of 8:25 Eastern Time where we have severe thunderstorm watches up. So we're going to let the let tonight's severe weather play out and see where it takes us tomorrow. I think in terms of tornadoes, if there's going to be any, perhaps tomorrow's setup might be a bit more favorable for tornadic activity across the central Gulf states than what's going on this evening up in the northern area of enhancement, and also perhaps later on tonight, tomorrow morning in parts of East Texas. There could be probably, I think there's the risk that you could see a couple of tornadoes being spawned. So we're just going to keep our eyes on it. Severe weather has been especially active in the last 10 days or so. So just a quick run on the chat board here, folks. I only got about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to have to go. Anthony Orr, the map you just showed shows 2 tornado warnings in Oklahoma. Okay, let me just see. Hang on, Anthony. Probably my eyes might not have caught that. And let's see if those. Yes, what do we got? Yes, we do. Actually, those reds are flash flood warnings. They're not tornado. They're flash flood. There's some flash flood warnings up in. I'm trying to see if that's on the Kansas side or not. It's hard for me to tell. That might be on the Kansas side or right on the border. But those are flash flood warnings that have been posted, and not tornado warnings. But the red is, some of the colors that they use on these maps, they're pretty close, and they can fool you. Warmest day in April in central New England, David Allen says. Highs of 68 today, quite surprising after a cold and very dry first half of April. Could you take a look and see if the warmth will last? Well, you're going to get, we did, run through with respect to the models. You're going to see temperatures up into the 60s, push up all the way into central New England going into the weekend. And I think that the weather is going to be relatively close to normal or a little bit above normal as we go through the first part of next week for sure, judging by the upper pattern. And by the way, on this date, this is the record in New York City on this date, and I just want to double check something. The record high, I believe, is 96, and that 96 was on 96 in 1976. I believe that was Easter Sunday of 1976. The temperature got to 96 degrees. And that might have been the highest, the all-time high for the month of April. I'm not 100% sure of. I'll have to go back and check. I'll have to ask my colleague Joe Rayo because he's good at remembering all those things in terms of the details. Running. I just want to run through this. Do you think I get some thunder over later Friday, Saturday, or Sunday? Javon Perry. Javon, I think up for you, if I remember correctly, you're up in Central Mass, perhaps with the instability on Sunday. I don't know. Maybe there'll be some low top thunderstorms with the weakening upper low as it moves across New England. But I didn't really look at it that closely, to be honest with you. So I'll try to remember to give it a quick look, and maybe we can address that question again tomorrow. Let's see, just running up the rest of the chat, and my clock is ticking here, folks, so I'm going to have to go. The Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight at 9:20-ish or 9:25-ish on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. And we've been ending the show a little earlier, so I have time to upload it to the YouTube channel. So if you don't have Facebook, it should be on the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, by about 10 o'clock or at most a minute or so afterwards. So if you don't want to watch it on Facebook, you could watch it later on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Perhaps with the activity tomorrow might be a bit busier. I'll push the live stream up a bit earlier and start it at 7:30 rather than starting it at 8 o'clock. All right? Thanks for being here. Patreon members, you got it twice today. So we will see you also tomorrow. And you can also always check my website, folks, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, for all the latest weather information. Have a great evening, and we'll see you either later on Facebook or tomorrow. Good night.